Lesson 76, Multiplying Radical Expressions. The product property of radicals states that if I have radical AB, that is equal to radical A times radical B. A concrete example of this would be if I have radical 6, that is the same as saying radical 2 times radical 3. What I can do is I just multiply what's inside the radicals to get that answer. So for example, it says simplify all variables represent non-negative real numbers. So here I can take 2 times 50, which gets me radical 100, which is a perfect square, so I can simplify that to 10. On B, I multiply what's on the outside, which is 3 times 5 is 15, and on the inside I have 2 times 7, which is 14, and 2 times 7 is the prime factorization of that, so that's as simplified as it gets. On this one, remember that whenever we're squaring something, we're taking that quantity times itself. So I have 4 radical 6 times 4 radical 6. So I'm going to multiply what's on the outside. 4 times 4 is 16. Radical 6 times radical 6 is radical 36, which is equal to 6. So I have 16 times 6. 16 times 6 gives me 96. On D, I'm going to have, there's a 3 out here, there's an understood 1 here, so 3 times 1 is 3, radical, and then I have 6 times 2 is 12, and x times x is x squared. This one I can simplify, so I'm going to factor tree this. This gives me 6 and 2, 2 and 3, that was an x squared. Okay, so this is the same as saying 3 radical 2 times 3 times x. Take out those doubles. So I have 3 times 2 times x, radical 3. 2 times 3 is 6x, radical 3. That's my final answer. On example 2, we are doing the exact same thing except for we're going to have to FOIL or distribute first. So I have radical 3 times 8 is 8 radical 3 plus, if I multiply these, I get radical 3 times radical 6 gives me a radical 18. Radical 18 can be factor treed to 2 and 9, 3 and 3. So that is the same as saying 8 radical 3 plus radical 2 times 3 times 3. Doubles come out, so I have 8 radical 3 plus 3 radical 2. That's my final answer. On B, we're doing the same thing here. I'm going to take this radical 3 to everything on the inside, which is going to give me radical 3 times radical 8 is radical 24, minus radical 3 times radical 5 is radical 15. So factor tree 24. That gets me radical 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 minus radical 15, because if I factor tree this, it's going to be 3 times 5, so I can't simplify it. I have double 2's that can come out, so I have a 2 radical 2 times 3 is 6 minus radical 15. That is my final answer. On example 3, now is when we're going to FOIL, so we're going to take first, outside, inside, last. So 3 times 6 is 18. Positive times a negative gives me a negative. 3 times radical 5 is 3 radical 5. Inside gives me radical 2 times 6. They're both positive, so it's going to be positive 6 radical 2. And then last, I have positive times a negative gives me a negative. Radical 2 times radical 5 is radical 10. And I do not have any like terms here because I don't have any that are the same radical. If I factor tree radical 10, it's going to be 5 and 2. There's no doubles there. That's it. This one, again, whenever we are squaring a quantity, we're taking that quantity times itself. So we're going to FOIL again here. First, outside, inside, last. So first I have 4 times 4 is 16. Positive times a negative gives me a negative, which is going to be 4 radical 8. negative times a positive gives me a negative. I get 4 radical 8. Radical 8 times negative times a negative is a positive. Radical 8 times radical 8 is radical 64. Okay, so this one I do have some simplifying that I can do. 8 factor trees into 4 and 2 and 2 and 2. Okay, which is going to be the same thing for this one. So I have 16 minus 4 radical 2 times 2 times 2 minus 4 radical 2 times 2 times 2 plus radical 64. We should know that's a perfect square, so that's just going to give us 8. My double 2's, I can take a 2 out, so I have 6 minus 4 times 2 radical 2 minus 4 times 2 radical 2 plus 8. So when I simplify that further, I have 16 minus 8 radical 2 minus 8 radical 2 plus 8. Now I can combine some like terms. 16 plus 8 and negative 8 radical 2 minus 8 radical 2. 16 plus 8 gives me a 24. Negative 8 radical 2 minus 8 radical 2 gives me a negative 16 radical 2. Final answer. Find the area of a rectangular mat. So if it's a rectangle, I'm going to draw my rectangle. And it has a side length of 4x, or not 4x, 4 plus radical 3. So 4 plus radical 3. And a width of 3 plus radical 2. And it wants us to find the area. Well, area of a rectangle is equal to length times width. We know what the length is, we know what the width is, so the area is equal to 4 plus radical 3 times 3 plus radical 2. That's a 2, not a 3. And what I want you to do is I want you to finish this one on your own paper, and I will see you in class tomorrow. Have a good night.